What's up, duelists? Today, we're going over my April 2025 ban list for the current format, which is currently a Malice and Ryziel. This is my wish list, not really a prediction, so pardon me if I don't know what the meta is. But anyway, let's just get right straight into it. So, the first thing we have here is Deep Sea Minstrel, and of course, the Elemental Lord of Water thing. So, I have both of these on ban because I personally, as a player, I do not like Atlantean. This is probably my least. It's between this and Malice. Malice is probably my least favorite deck just because it's more popular. Number two, and it has Shifter. And the second one is flippin' Mermail. I flippin' hate Mermail. That deck feels like an actual FTK. Not to mention, it already feels impossible to hand trap because all the cards like dump or discard for cost, which already lets you search other cards anyway. So the engine is actually really good into not disruptions, but it's really good into like negation and stuff. So I think Minstrel and the Elemental Lord should be banned because both these cards hand rip you for 3. So if you literally need like 5 hand traps to even stop them, and then you lose because you don't have engine. So I think both these cards should be hit. If anything, Minstrel shouldn't, but Elemental Lord should. This card is literally just says discard 2. It is broken. Next up, we have Shifter. I think this is an obvious one. I think most people want Shifter ban. This is mainly for Malice, of course. I think Malice is not a very good deck. I don't hate the design of Malice in that way. I just don't like how it's basically a Cybers pile, and it basically has weird ways to interrupt. And my main problem with the deck, obviously, is Shifter, because they can play this card without, they lose a lot of their Cyber stuff, which is fine. The whole point of the deck is to banish and then, get resources off that. But the fact that you have to play with D-Shifter is not fun. Maybe giving them a way where all their cards were banished instead of going to the grave could be cool, but obviously they didn't go down that route. And I think Shifter would be a really good way to make sure this deck doesn't become tier 1 again. Next, we have Bahamut Shark, which is actually another Atlantean hit. This is 3 or 4. I know. I'm biased. Okay, I'm biased. I'm sorry, but I am not a fan of Bahamut Shark or the Toad package, and because for the main part, this deck can actually end on 2 Toads depending on their hand, similar to Shark cards. And I know people are going to say, why are you banning Bahamut Shark, not Toad? Well, the main reason is while Toad is the negate, it is a broken negate. I think Bahamut Shark is actually the problem here. It is more generic because it just takes 2 level 4 water monsters, which especially with the recent rank 4 support, or level 4 support rather, it is actually extremely easy to make, and not to mention Bahamut Shark is not once per turn, so you can actually loop this card with cards like Eclipse Twin, which is actually right here, and just makes this card broken. You can end on 2 Toads. Not to mention there's a cool thing where when Toads send to the grave, you can add back a water. It's basically followed. This combo is so strong. And the fact that Atlantean even have this is bonkers. So I think Bahamut Shark should get hit instead of Toad because more decks can make Bahamut Shark easily. And there's only a couple decks in the game that actually can even make totally awesome. The only thing that come to mind are what, frogs, ice barriers, prank kids. Like, there's not a lot of decks that can make Toad on its own. I think that's fine. Toad's a good card. It should only be to some decks, not flipping almost every deck in the game. It just doesn't feel that good. So I think Bahamut Shark is a hit. Similarly, this is more of a Ryziel hit, but it also technically hits Sharks, I suppose. But I think Eclipse Twins should be banned. I think this card is very toxic. I actually like Ryziel as a deck. I'm actually a big fan of it. The fact that it's basically the best deck in the room, I think is actually a really good thing. It has a pretty simple gameplay and very low to the pretty low ceiling rather, and I actually like that. I really like that. And then of course we innovated the Fiendsmith build, and now we're going back to the pure build. I think that's cool. I think this deck is very innovative. I really like that. However, Eclipse Twin is the nail in the coffin. I think this card is absurd. The fact that Detonator, I think, is a really good boss monster. I'm actually fine with it being a thing. It's broken, don't get me wrong. It's very overtuned, but I don't think it's ban worthy, rather. And the fact that you just put an Eclipse Twin on this, and the fact that there's only like 1 card in the game realistically that outs it, which is Meltronus, it's just absurd. And then Twins can just bring it back, and it gets 2 more pops. This card is insane. And the fact that it's also a super rare when it was printed makes it a very easy ban target. Next, we have Abyss Dweller. This is also technically a Atlantean hit, but flip Atlantean. Anyway, Dweller is insane. This card has been broken since tier format. This card is so dumb. And it's a water, so Atlanteans can obviously make it. And Sharks. I can go on. This card is so broken, so many decks can make it, and it just turns off half the decks, most decks in the game, because most decks use the graveyard. It's a second resource. It's just insane this card is still on the list. I think it should 100% be banned. Even if it got an errata to like only be on the field, it wouldn't even be clear to be broken. A lingering floodgate is not fun. No one wants this. So yeah, this card should get hit. Also, a clip tweet could bring it back. So please ban both. Next, we have Griffin. I know Malice players are starting to go away from the whole Griffin package just because, like, having a bunch of interruptions is just better than a Floodgate. But yeah, Griffin to Floodgate, I don't like this card. It's also generic. It also gets you to Fiendsmith, funny enough, which is really funny. But yeah, I am not a fan of this card. I think this card should be banned. Next, we have Moon. This is the most controversial part of this list, I think. Fiends, just like Ryziel, I actually do like Fiendsmith as a deck. I think it's cool. I think it has really good grind game, has really good potential for decks that don't really have the power that they need. Not to mention, it takes up a decent amount of the main deck with some bricks. And of course, it takes up like 6 to 7 slots in your extra deck, which is a really big payoff for, having this engine in your deck. So I do like these cards, but they've been around for a while. And even though there are reprints probably coming, I think this deck should get hit at some point. And I think the best way to do it is Moon. Now, most people are going to be saying, oh, wait, not Requiem. You can get Requiem off Exciton, which is a light fiend for rank 4 decks, which is true. I understand that. However, that only applies to rank 4 decks, and not every deck, of course, is rank 4. So maybe at some point we hit that card. I highly doubt we do that. Plus, rank 4 decks, I think they're probably the next set not going to be as supported as right now. But Moon is crazy. This card is an extra life fiend, which leaves Lacrima and Requiem engraved for obviously the trap setup. But not only that, this card allows every deck in the game to go full Fiendsmith combo, which is absurd. Not to mention, this card was a common, which was then reprinted into an OTS pack as super rare. So this card is actually really easy to hit. In fact, most of these cards are actually very easy to hit because they all have low rarity printing. Just so you know, I'm not screwing anyone over. I promise. But yeah, I think Moon is the best hit here. It just makes it so now every deck has access to it, and if they do, they have to play a high count of Fiendsmith in the extra in the main deck, which I think is better because it makes it so that you have to design your whole deck around Fiendsmith. Or you have to actually play Light Fiends. Like that was the whole point of the deck. You have to play Light Fiends. Like I think Magic Muskets. I think that was a really cool deck that it could use. It can make Requiem off their normal summon. I think that's awesome. That's cool design. Not the fact that you can just link 2 bodies off that got impermanent or whatever into Moon. I think it's a very better way of handling it. I know some people say, hey, Requiem, which I don't know about that because it basically kills the deck, but whatever. I know some people say hit Engraver, which Engraver would be the second thing I would say. I would say definitely hit Engraver other than the tracker I have down here, which we'll talk about when we get there. But I actually like the Fiendsmith cards, and the fact that it's going to get reprinted, I would like some players to be able to play it. So if anything, you hit Engraver to 2, but obviously us Yu-Gi-Oh players don't believe in semi-limits, so we don't even talk about that. There's something else. Last thing I was going to say is Caesar. Caesar is actually becoming less popular, funny enough. It is double solemn, so like it's still a broken card, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely becoming less popular. And also, spoiler alert, I have Shavar down here, which is of course support for Unchained, because I loved Unchained. That was such a good format, and I wish I actually played the deck when it came out, but it was just so expensive. But regardless, I think it'd be cool if Unchained could come back and Caesar would be a way for that deck to kind of have that like push to be meta. Or rogue, rather. It's not gonna be meta. It's gonna be rogue. Sorry, but yeah, I think this is the best way to do it. And don't hit Caesar, even though it probably should get hit. I think this is just a better way to do it. Also, not every deck can access Caesar, which is a plus. The 2 last cards we have here are Call By and Crossout. Call By is a sacky one. Of this card should never. Cards like these should either be at 3 or at 0. I don't understand why these cards are at 1. This card just feels so bad to play into. Not to mention, we're currently in a format where you basically need 2 to 3 hand traps to even stop your opponent. And the fact that if your opponent opens Call By, this makes it so that you need 3 to 4 hand traps to stop them, which is insane. This card is so good. And it's just broken. I don't like this card. I think the card should get similar to Crossout. Crossout is again, very similar. I've never been a fan of Crossout design-wise. I don't really like how you have to play the card. Like, I've never played this card before, but if you're playing, for instance, Branded and you just lose, or Pearly and you just lose to D Barrier, yeah, you need to play Cross Out, else you just lose to the side deck, if that card's obviously in the meta. But I don't like that. I think decks should just be built to not lose certain cards. It's just unfortunate, but I think Cross Out get hit. This card is insane, and it basically negates any card in the game, which is not fair. That's it for the Forbidden. Let me know if I missed anything. Next, let's move on to the limits. So, we have Bestial Durastorm, which this is also a weird hit. Not necessarily weird, but most people here would actually ban Magnum, which I actually kind of understand. My only reason I don't have that card on this list is because I actually like Bestial Control. I think that, or just Bestial in general. I like Bestials, and the fact that they're also getting reprinted soon in April with Lubelia and Durastorm makes it just ever so slightly. I just do not want those cards getting hit. I want to actually use them because they've been expensive since release for the most part. So instead of, don't get me wrong, Manama should be banned low key in Tenpai format, but those cards aren't really a thing in TCG right now. Even though they're not awful, they're just not a thing. So I don't know. Magnum probably could get hit, but and it would also make more sense because the reprint. But regardless, I want Bestial Control to be a thing, so I believe in the meta. So we're gonna put Jerusalem at 1, which is still a really good card. These cards are insane. I like Bestial. I think they're actually some of the best hand traps printed recently over the Dominus cards. Next, we have Fairy Tale Snow, which is basically, if this is more of like a personal hit, I actually like Snow as a design. Master Duel obviously is irrelevant, but Snow is a really good card for obviously pile decks. I think this card is really cool. It's also level 4, which actually makes sense for all the rank 4 support we've gained recently. So maybe this could like go with that. Maybe Konami might think of something like that. But I actually like this card. Not to mention it is a light, which also loses to Bestials, which is fine. Like I don't know. I don't mind Bestials being a thing. I think it's cool that your deck gets punished for having lights or dark. I think that's cool gameplay design. Moving on, we have 2 cards that are hit to Ryziel. We have Bonfire and X Ryziel. X Ryziel is the best card in the deck. This card is insane, and even though I think it is insane, I actually don't necessarily want it to be banned. It's just the fact that this card is the best follow up in the game. It's an imperm with Ag. Like this card is just insane. It's broken. So putting it to 1 makes their grind game, like Ryziel's grind game is okay, but putting this to 1 makes their grind game infinitely worse, which is actually a good thing. So yeah, I think X should get hit. Bonfire, same thing. This just searches X or Ice. This card has been insane since Snake Eye format, and it's been almost a year and a half now. So like I don't know. This card should just get hit and make all the lives better. Next we have Malice Dormouse. Okay, so Dormouse is a weird one. Again, I don't like Malice as a deck, but it's obviously getting support, so I don't necessarily think it should get hit like that much. And I've been honestly, I've been pretty nice to Malice so far. So with this being the basically only hit other than Shifter, I think this is fine. Dormouse is the best starter in the deck. So making it more of like and more recently actually, I've been seeing people make Malice as an engine with like goblins and stuff, which I think is actually really cool. So I'm fine with that. I just don't like how Malice uses D-Shifter or plays the Cyber stuff. It's just so annoying to deal with. So putting Dormouse, which is the best starter to 1, would help with that. It also might reintroduce Silent Mining into their deck, which is a -1 inherently, which I'm fine with. And yeah, but it still makes the deck playable or as an engine, which I think is fine. Next, we have Nephthys, the Atlantean Prince. I don't know how you say this card, but again, this is my 5th hit the Mermail. Do not like this deck at all. Most of the Mermail starters actually have to discard cards from hand. This card, I don't know if you guys ever read this card, probably not, because you know Mermail just go crazy. But this card dumps from deck for cost, then searches. This card's insane. I mean, if you imperm this, they still get a search. Like you need like 2 hand traps to stop this 1 card. This card is the best starter in their deck, so definitely hit this to 1. This card is insane. I'm biased, I know, but at least I'm aware of that. These 2 cards, we have both Zoo cards, Broadbone, Drident. Again, rank 4 is at the top right now, so I think bringing these cards back is actually really good. Drident is a worse detonator, and it's also harder to get to. Like this card has been power crept to oblivion. This card could have come back years ago. Doesn't do anything. Broadbone, I think only searches like Beast Warriors, which I can't even name a Beast Warrior off the top of my head, other than the one from the Millennium set, Sengoku, something like that. So this card could definitely come back. I don't know who's playing this. And finally, we have Faintsmith Tract. Again, I like Fiendsmith as a deck. I think Moon is actually enough to just like kind of not kill it, but kind of like hurt the deck a lot. But putting Tract to 1 makes it so that engravers are more bricky because it's you can't put back a Tract obviously. So Fiendsmith engraver in hand is more bricky. Lurie becomes a little worse because you only have 1 Tract. So if you put back the Lurie, you have no way of discarding it. I think this is a fine hit. Of course, we don't believe in semi-limits, and then we have the unlimits, which are pretty self-explanatory. Spiral Master Plan isn't really doing anything. I've never seen it in Master Duel. I know it's once per turn effect, I think, so maybe that's why it hasn't come back. But I don't think this card's a problem at all. If someone dumps this off Souls, I'll make sure, man. Go right ahead. This is actually the biggest one in here that I actually really want back. Shavara. I think Unchained was a really cool deck when it came out. It was so innovative. Like this is why I love NATCG specifically. This deck was just so cool, and I actually really wanted to come back. That's why I mainly left Caesar, even though I don't really like Caesar as a card. But if we ban Moon, we don't have to worry about every deck making Caesar, which I'm fine with. Yeah, I think Unchained comeback would be great. It's not gonna be good. It's gonna be like flipping like with Fuwa. This deck's gonna be like flipping Rogue at best. But I want this deck to come back. I love this deck. Watching it at least. Monkey Board can go back to 3. This card does not do anything. I actually like this not Plush Fire didn't really do anything, but I do like this card with like Lizard and Skull Crobat, something like that. I actually like these cards, but no one's been using them, so who cares? Tsuchinoko and Jackal, I think both came to 2. They don't do anything. These cards are pretty bad to be honest, so bring them back. Meow Meow Moo, yeah, Prank Kids. I don't know. I've always did not like Prank Kids, but in this environment, I don't think they do anything. So bring this card back. I don't know. This doesn't even do anything. Third here is Hornet Drones. Yeah, this one might be surprising some people, but not really. This card is a 3 Master Duel, doesn't do a whole lot. Not to mention, bringing this to 3 actually helps the Yummy deck, which will be coming out in a couple months. So I actually think this is actually a perfect time to bring this card back to 3. Second to last, we have Zodiac Barrage, which of course is more Zodiac support. Again, the Zoo cards have been power crept. They're not that good. I think the best part about them actually is that they're Earth, which means like you can't really Bestial them. So they're actually like kind of cool like that. Maybe you make like some kind of like build with like Tri Brigade. I know that's not gonna happen, but maybe you bring back like some like Beast Warrior builds. I don't know, but Barrage doesn't really do anything. The only one I'm unsure about bringing back was actually Rapier, and from some people I talked to, Rapier should not come back. So or sorry, it's at 1. Keep it at 1. So I guess we just keep Rapier. I don't really know to be honest, but I think both. I low key all these cards can come back to 3, but I just put 1 because why not? So yeah, bring these cards back. They don't do anything. And finally, we have Naturi Sacred Tree. Why was this card hit? I don't know. This card should definitely come back. It makes Runic build a little cooler. Maybe Pearly build to start playing this. I don't know. I just think this card is great, and Naturias haven't been doing anything. And while Naturia is the most fun strategy to play against, I don't think it's an awful engine and shouldn't be power. It shouldn't die because of power creep. Anyway, guys, this is my current April 2025 ban list for the next format. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys would change, and yeah, you all have a good rest of your day. Thank you for watching.